The Bloodstarved Beast. Deformed, its skin peeled off and hanging from the back. The beast is basted with blood, but still thirsty for more. Hard to say why it became this way, but its erratic, nimble movements make it hard to fight. This malformed beast has had all of its skin peeled off its back, making for a truly gruesome sight. Much like the cleric beast, the blood-starved beast also has a malnourished and almost skeletal appearance, known for its unquenchable thirst for blood. Therefore, instead of devouring the flesh of its prey, the blood-starved beast sucks their blood completely. Preparation. Weapons that inflict bonus damage against beasts, such as the saw spear and the saw cleaver, are useful for this battle. So, upgrading one beforehand is a good idea. If you haven't already obtained the flame sprayer from Gilbert in Central Yarnum, be sure to do so. It's also well worth making a side trip to Hemwick Woods to pick up some bone marrow ash. Pungent blood cocktails are an extremely effective tool in this fight. Be sure you have your weapon upgraded to +3 by this point. There are numerous bloodstone shards available in Old Yarnum and in the Cathedral Ward. Fire paper is extremely helpful for increasing the damage of your melee attacks. Also, be sure your weapon is slotted with blood gems for maximum damage, such as the red-jeweled brooch found in the Tomb of Odin. If you've already met Alfred in the Cathedral Ward and exhausted his dialogue, you'll be able to summon him outside the church to assist you during the battle. Overview. The blood-starved beast resides in the abandoned Church of the Good Chalice in Old Yarnum. During Phase 1, it moves very slowly and isn't very aggressive. It will spend most of its time strafing sideways or walking toward you and will occasionally perform basic claw swipes or lunging slashes. Phase 2 begins when its health drops below 70%, at which point it will roar and cover itself in a permanent aura that adds extremely potent slow poison buildup to all of its melee attacks. It fights more aggressively during this phase and will begin sprinting towards you to use its claw attacks. It will also start to use a fast lunging grab attack that can reach you from very far away. In addition to its Phase 1 attack chains, it will perform a more repetitive 5-hit combo. When you reduce its health to 30%, it will initiate a Phase 3 with its Poison Blast attack, which will cause it to continuously emit toxic mist that builds up slow poison if you stand too close. It will become even more aggressive and unpredictable during this phase, relentlessly chasing you down and attacking with long combos. Its grab attack is much more common, and it will use its poison blast at regular intervals when its toxic proximity effect wears off. Strategy. The most effective ways to defeat the blood-starved beast involve exploiting its severe weakness against fire. Reduce its health to about 80% with melee attacks. Then strike it with an oil urn and wait for it to use its slow combo. When it does, interrupt it and immediately hit it with a Molotov instead of performing a visceral attack. The combination of damage bonuses from the oil status and the stagger state enable this simple technique to inflict a tremendous amount of damage. The flame sprayer is equally effective when used in a similar manner. Strike the boss with an oil urn and use a pinch of bone marrow ash and wait for it to perform an attack with a long recovery period. When it does, move in and strafe it with your flame sprayer to deal heavy damage in seconds. The Bloodstarved Beast can be trivialized with the right consumable setup. He is susceptible to pungent blood cocktails and can easily be lured into a corner. Use fire paper on your weapon and toss a pungent blood cocktail into the corner of the room. You'll have several seconds to freely attack the beast before you need to toss another cocktail. Otherwise, staying very close to the boss and circling to your left can avoid all of the Bloodstarved Beast attacks. Attacking it from behind while it's recovering from its own attack is ideal. It has no back attacks to punish you. Environment. The church battlefield consists of a long rectangular nave with aisles on both sides and a semicircular ambulatory at the far end. The nave is large and open, providing plenty of room to fight on even ground. The ambulatory surrounds an altar, which can be used for cover, but the narrow aisles restrict your evasive ability, and the pillars supporting them don't provide safe cover. In general, keep the fight to the length of the nave, so that you have plenty of room to dodge. Use the altar to obstruct the boss if you need time to heal, but try to stay out of the aisles. If you run out of antidotes, you could obtain 3 more from the corpse behind the altar. Old Hunter summons. Location. Old Hunter Alfred, found in the courtyard right before the boss battle. His summon sign will be on the bottom of the stairs as you enter the courtyard. Requirement. You must have spoken to Alfred and agreed to cooperate with him. If you shift time into night, Alfred moves to his new position outside the Forbidden Woods. His summon signs disappear and won't be available for this boss fight. And notes. During Bloodstarved Beast's grab attack animation, damage cannot be reduced by repeatedly pressing buttons. Despite the Bloodstarved Beast having 999 slow poison resistance, it is still vulnerable to such attacks. All enemy bosses, except hunter enemies, have 999 frenzy resistance. Despite that, they are still vulnerable to such status. The only way to see it without modding is to use the Shaman Bone Blade on enemies inflicting frenzy to attack others. After defeating the Bloodstarved Beast, an elevator will unlock in the Cathedral Ward. Odin Chapel will lead to the Healing Church Workshop. You can summon Alfred, Hunter of the Vile Bloods, for this boss fight. Bloodstarved Beast in Hunter's Nightmare can be lured outside of the cave, anywhere it can fit. It has no leash, and it is hostile to most of the inhabitants. In various root dungeons, you can rarely come across a roaming version who will act as a strong enemy on your way to the lair boss. Attack patterns. Phase 1. Lunging Slash. Delayed long-range lunge, quick step forward or to the left. Slow combo. Up to 3 hits with long reach, but slow startup. Quick step forward past its side or strafe clockwise at close range. Fast combo. Up to 3 hits with quick startup and long reach. Quick step forward past it. Phase 1 strategy. The Bloodstarved Beast is most vulnerable during the first phase, due to its slow movement and minimal aggression. You can avoid all of its attacks by circling clockwise around it at a very close distance. Beware that both its slow and fast combos can clip you if you are too close to its attack before the combo finishes. If you're using a weapon that can employ charged R2 attacks from behind, followed by a visceral attack. If you're confident in your timing, you can interrupt all of the Bloodstarved Beast's attacks. Just be aware that doing so later in the fight can be extremely risky. Remember to stay close and take advantage of his scream that signals Phase 2. A few R1 hits or a charged R2 to the back can add some significant damage. Attack patterns. Phase 2. Poison grab. Lunging mid to long range grab. Extremely quick and inflicts slow poison. Quick step forward or sideways. Rage combo. Up to 5 rapid hits with extremely quick startup. Quick step forward. Phase 2 strategy. Watch out for the boss's grab attack during this phase, and try to avoid being hit. Even a glancing blow from its claws will inflict an enormous amount of slow poison buildup. Watch for it to stop walking and stare forward for a moment. That signals an oncoming grab attack. You can still avoid all of its attacks by rotating or quick-stepping past it in a clockwise direction. And do your best to stay behind it, as it cannot reach you in this position. Continue using pungent blood cocktails to lure it into a vulnerable area, or punish its attacks from behind. Be aware of the scream that signals Phase 3, and punish it appropriately with a charged R2 from behind and a visceral attack, or several R1 attacks. Attack patterns. Phase 3. Poison blast. Large spherical attack area. Inflicts damage and generates an aura that builds up slow poison. Avoid staying near it. Jump combo. Mid-range jump, followed by 2 quick slashes. Quick step forward past it. Phase 3 strategy. Your priority during this phase is to finish the boss as quickly as possible, though you'll also need to pay careful attention to its attacks in order to avoid being poisoned or grabbed. Make every effort to stay behind the boss and don't get greedy with your melee attacks. Attempting to interrupt it during this phase is extremely risky due to its unpredictability. As in the previous phases, you can avoid all of its attacks with very close clockwise rotation or quick steps. But be aware that its poison aura, if it has successfully used Poison Blast. When the Bloodstarved Beast retreats and begins emitting jets of brown mist, it is readying its Poison Blast. While this move has heavy super armor, You can cancel it by repeatedly striking the boss's head with quick R1 attacks or landing a charged R2 from behind, followed by a visceral attack. Pungent blood cocktails still affect the Bloodstarved Beast in this phase, so use them if necessary for some free damage. The Witch of Hemwick. In the outskirts of Yharnam, the city of gravekeeper witches carved by the sunlight, Hemwick. In its depths, an old, gigantic structure, and an old lady lies in wait, holding suspicious rituals in the deepest of the night. For that very purpose, it is said that it gathers the eyeballs of the living. In the city where unwanted corpses would be gathered and disposed of, her outfit might just be fitting of one such place. Hemwick Graveyard, located on the outskirts of Yharnam, despite the warm-colored sky and beautiful clouds, this graveyard is home to some very twisted residents. Like the deformed gravekeeper hags with their horrifying shrieks and long-reach attacks. When you make your way through the depths of the Hemwick Graveyard, you'll come upon an old manor inhabited by a powerful, eyeball-collecting old witch, among other things. Night after night, this old woman loses herself in a strange ritual. Supposedly, because of this mysterious rite, she is taken to collecting eyeballs, which she proudly wears for all to see. Preparation. Be sure you've obtained the Radiant Sword Hunter badge from the Healing Church workshop to make bone marrow ash available for purchase from the bath messengers in the Hunter's Dream. Stock up on blood vials, quicksilver bullets, and bone marrow ash. If you've already acquired the Powder Cake Hunter badge from Jura in Old Yharnam, buy a full load of oil urns as well. Finally, if you've picked up any numbing mists and haven't used them yet, this is a good time to add them to your quick items. This measure is optional, but can provide a helpful advantage during the battle. Overview. Although the witch herself is weak and straightforward for a boss enemy, she uses several divisionary tactics to complicate the fight. During the first phase, the witch you'll face is actually a doppelganger. The real one will not join the battle until the clone's health falls below 50%. Both witches are invisible outside a narrow radius of 2 or 3 meters. Moreover, the real witch's health bar will not be displayed at any point during Phase 1. Even after she joins the battle and begins taking damage, each witch will always begin the battle in a fixed position. The clone starts off in the corner to the left of the entrance, while the real witch will appear in the opposite corner to the right of the exit. Neither witch is especially aggressive during this phase. Most of the time they'll slowly wander the perimeter of the room and completely ignore you, but will occasionally perform a single melee attack, or their dark wave if you get too close. They will teleport away from you after being hit, usually to the opposite end of the room, or onto the walkways, and will continuously summon mad ones, up to a total of 4. These mad ones have extremely short detection range and move very slowly during Phase 1, but can become a serious problem if they corner you. Phase 2 begins when you reduce either witch's health to 0. At this point, you'll have 50 seconds to defeat the remaining witch before the first one stands back up with 20% health. Both witches will begin bombarding you with repeated paralysis blasts during this phase and will immediately follow up with their eye gouge while you're stunned. They will also summon mad ones more frequently and will continue using their dark wave attack at mid-range. The mad one's movement speed and detection range will increase during this phase, and they'll become more aggressive and persistent in hunting you down. Strategy: reduce both witches' health to critical levels during Phase 1 and keep careful track of their positions to finish them in quick succession and completely bypass the battle's second phase. Their incredibly slow movement during the first phase allows you to stagger them consecutively with charged attacks and trap them in a chain of visceral attacks until you run out of stamina. Alternatively, you can power up your cannon or flame sprayer with bone marrow ash, strike one of the witches from behind with an oil urn, stagger her with a charged attack before she teleports, and blast her during the stagger state for heavy damage. Hitting the witches with numbing mist surrounds them in a white cloud, which can be used to track them from far away. If you're having problems with the mad ones, you can enter the fight with 0 insight and they will not appear. Note that the first time you enter the fight, you'll be granted 1 insight and will have to spend it for this to work. Environment: the partially collapsed bridge connecting the outer walkways effectively divides the room into 2 square halves, though you can move freely between them through the broken section in the middle. Running on the walkways generates loud noise that will immediately alert any summoned mad ones to your exact location, no matter how far away you are. You can prevent this by tilting the left analog stick gently to walk, but it can also be used to lure the mad ones onto the walkways and away from the witches if you need more room to fight. Notes: defeating the witch will open Bloodshot Eyeball for purchase at the Insight Bath Messengers. During the Witch of Hemwick's grab attack animations, damage cannot be reduced by repeatedly pressing buttons. The Witch of Hemwick will keep summoning mad ones if you have at least 1 insight. For the boss encounter, if you have 0 insight, no mad ones will be summoned. All enemies and bosses, except hunter enemies, have 999 frenzy resistance. Despite this, they are still vulnerable to such attacks. The only way to see it without modding is to use the Shaman Bone Blade on enemies inflicting frenzy to attack others. Defeating the Witch of Hemwick grants you access to the cell where you can pick up the Rune Workshop tool. The Witches of Hemwick can be staggered infinitely with a Kirkhammer. Charge attack once, and then follow up to make the witch fly. Then go up behind and repeat. Witches of Hemwick can damage each other if their attacks are subsequently able to kill each other. Attack patterns: Phase 1, Dark Wave. Spherical attack with 2-meter radius. Quick step forward through it or backward to escape. Summon. Summons up to 4 mad ones in quick succession. Shoot or attack the witch to cancel the summoning. Phase 1 strategy. Walk far enough into the boss room to initiate the fight, then turn left and engage the doppelganger witch. You may use any desired means to fight her, but charging visceral attacks is the quickest and most effective way to deal damage. Keep an eye on the mad ones and run up the walkway to divert them if you need more room to fight. If you drop down from the longer half of the broken bridge spanning the arena, every mad one in the room will move slowly to that spot and then lose track of you, provided you don't either enter their detection range before they get there. The witch's melee attacks and Dark Wave can damage the mad ones, but don't count on them to use either one. Most of the time they won't attack at all. If they do use their Dark Wave, either quick step toward them or just before they cast to negate the damage with your invincibility frames, or quick step backwards as soon as possible to avoid the attack entirely. Reduce the clone's health to around 20% and memorize her current location. Then, head to the far end of the room and track down the real witch. If you haven't already attacked her, she will be wandering around near the exit. If you have any numbing miss, hit her with one before attacking so that you can track her location. Otherwise, deal as much damage as possible using any of the key strategies before she can teleport away. Focus on defeating the real witch first, and then, when she falls, immediately return to the doppelganger's position and finish her off before she has a chance to initiate Phase 2. Attack Patterns. Phase 2. Paralysis Blast. Long-range projectile that paralyzes, followed by Eye Gouge if it connects. Roll or quick step sideways. Eye Gouge. Running grab attack used after a paralysis blast. Unavoidable if paralyzed. Otherwise, quick step sideways. Phase 2 strategy. If you're unable to defeat both witches before this phase begins, you'll have to deal with their paralysis blasts and constant attacks from more aggressive mad ones. Using the walkways to draw the mad ones away from the witches becomes much more important at this point, but the barrage of paralyzing magic will make it dangerous to stay in one place for too long. You can use the terrain and even the mad ones themselves to block these projectiles. You can also use the projectiles to get a fix on the witches' locations. Apart from the increased pressure and less frequent opportunities to safely attack the witches, the overall strategy during this phase remains the same. Reduce their health to critical levels and strike them down at close intervals to bring the fight to an end.